But the real truth about the war would come from a most unlikely place. This Buckinghamshire countryside was once home to a lonely young artist called Paul Nash, a man whose intense emotional bond with nature would make him the greatest war painter of the 20th century. On his long, solitary walks, Paul developed the fanciful idea that trees were like people, with personalities all of their own. And he painted them obsessively. But not even a sensitive young man like Nash could avoid the war. And eventually, he signed up. It was February 1917 when he disembarked at the port town of Le Havre. He wondered what all the fuss was about. This was a subdued time in the war, as armies regrouped and the generals argued over strategy. But after a few relaxed weeks, Nash finally received orders to move up to the front line. But during the lull, nature had reclaimed the battlefields, and the trenches were in bloom. Where his comrades saw death and destruction, Nash thought this place was actually quite nice. What wasn't there to like? There were trees, leaves, birds, sunrises. Even the trenches were quite pretty. In fact, the whole place reminded him of Sussex. And he couldn't resist the temptation to paint it. Two swallows swooped low past an orchard, and shrubs thrive amid the trenches. But this pastoral idyll wasn't to last. That spring, the British Army began preparing for a massive new offensive. And it was then that an accident would profoundly alter Nash's future. One day, Nash actually climbed out of the trench to make a sketch of some rather delightful lights he saw shining away in the distance. Anyway, as he stepped to the side to get a better look at them, he lost his balance, tumbled back into the trench and broke a rib. Now, he was immediately sent back to England to recover from the injury, but it was probably the luckiest thing that ever happened to him in his life, because only a few days later, his whole company was slaughtered in a disastrous offensive. Passchendaele, the most brutal and inhumane battle of the whole war. Hundreds of thousands of men disappeared into no man's land, and many of them never returned. After his recovery, Paul Nash returned to Passchendaele. But the place that he'd once found so beautiful was now a desolate wasteland. Nash was utterly horrified by what he saw here. And to understand how he felt, you really have to hear what he wrote in a letter to his wife after he saw it. Because I think it's one of the most powerful things ever written about the First World War, perhaps about any war. And this is what he wrote. Sunset and sunrise are blasphemous. They are mockeries to man. It is unspeakable, godless, hopeless. I am no longer an artist, interested and curious. I am a messenger who will bring back word from the men who are fighting to those who want the war to go on forever. Feeble, inarticulate will be my message, but it will have a bitter truth, and may it burn their lousy souls. And it was that horror, that outrage, that desire to tell the truth about the war that caused Nash to make the greatest masterpieces of his career. But Nash's greatest work is the bleakest of them all. It's the morning after the battle. The sun is rising. And now, the sunrise is typically a symbol of hope and rebirth and renewal. But not this sunrise, because this sunrise doesn't reveal a twinkling new morning. It reveals a truly appalling scene. You can see here a sky that's blood red, filled with all the blood that has been shed the night before. You can see a forest all the way here of burnt and broken trees. And underneath this crazy, writhing ocean of mud. And out of that mud, these trees become metaphors for the dead buried beneath them, with their sagging limbs like the arms. These become like the bodies who have fallen on the field of battle. Parts of this tree here look like a hand imploring the heavens, but the heavens remain indifferent. I mean, I think this is a truly brutal and incredibly powerful attack on war and its consequences from Nash. And I think it's more powerful than any book or any poem or any film, precisely because it's so silent and so empty and so wordless.